Good morning. Happy Friday. We made it. I'm so glad. So, I wanted to tell you, sorry, I've got friends and family texting this morning about random things, so my phone's making noises. Listen, so this morning, first of all, chapter 26 of Matthew, 26:27 was my verse today. So you know how I do. I read the whole, for those of you that don't know, I'm going through gratitude and thanks and praise and those verses that mention those things in the Bible. There's like 97 of them, and I'm reading everything around the verse, and eventually I'm going to go through the science of gratitude, and then we're going to move on to like faithfulness. I don't know. But anyway, so today is episode 6 or verse 6, whatever. So Matthew 26:27. I'm going to tell you what it is, and then I'm going to tell you the chapter. 26:26 and 26:27. They kind of go together. It's about the first communion. It's about when Jesus blesses, he takes the bread and the wine and he blesses it and he breaks it, and then he gives thanks for the bread and the wine, and he gives it to the disciples, representing the first communion, representing Christ's death when his body is broken for us, and resurrection and his blood is spilled, and terribly gruesome, and then he conquers sin on the cross, and 3 days later he conquers the grave, he conquers death when he raises from the grave. First communion, first representation. God blesses the food and the bread and stuff and gives thanks to God for it and for this whatever, and then they have communion. All right, let me backtrack. So, chapter 26 is like 76, 77, I don't even know. It's like 75 verses long. It's super long. And there is so much to unpack. I can't even unpack all of the chapter. There's just so much. So I'm going to start from I'm going to tell you a little bit of and then till the communion. And then the other stuff, I'm not even going to unpack. So Passover. Jesus begins the chapter by telling his disciples that in a couple of days he's going to die. And he's been telling them, they don't absorb it. I can understand that. But he tells them, look, in a couple of days I'm going to die. At the same time, while Jesus is doing all these amazing things and people love him and adore him, and, like a week before this, they, hailed him as he came in on a donkey, and they were like, we love him, Palm Sunday. So he's like, I'm going to die in a couple days. At the same time, the chief priests are plotting how they can steal Jesus and kill him. How they can basically kidnap him, secret sauce, and take him out. They are so filled with anger and self-righteousness about Jesus's claims, because they follow the law, legality. They have religion. They don't have a relationship with God, and they have power, and this threatens that power and control over the people. They do not like it, and they want to kill him, right? So that's happening. So Jesus, there's a couple times during those few days where they're eating together, and then the night they have communion is Passover, and they're having Passover and stuff. But anyway, like the day before the betrayal, when everybody's plotting to kill him, there's a lady that comes in with an alabaster jar and the oil is worth a lot of money. It's worth, I don't even know. I mean, like, maybe some people say a couple of months, 5-6 weeks, or it could be more depending on what type of whatever. But my phone was like, meh. Anyway, and so she comes in, and she understands and believes Jesus, not just that he's the Messiah, but she understands and believes when he says he's going to die. I can't imagine having this valuable of a possession, probably passed down with family and cherished as, whatever. I can't imagine the emotion and the feelings of watching the Messiah taking this and pouring it out on him, like preparing him for death and burial, and the act of love that she does towards Jesus, right? I can't imagine. So the disciples are like, what a waste. Why are we entertaining this? That could have been sold for money, and we could have taken care of all of the poor. We could have done all this stuff with it, And Jesus is like, here's the thing. You are always going to have poor among you, but you are not always going to have me. And what she has done is going to be remembered through history. Like, she's going to be remembered for this act of love for me because she understands the assignment. And so in the disciples is Judas. Enter Judas. He's the treasurer. He takes care of the money and stuff, and he steals. He takes off the top. He lines his pockets. And so he's watching this happen, and he's furious. He's pissed because this is a couple of months worth of money he could have pilfered and taken off of. And he's like, are you kidding me right now? He's mad. So he goes to those people that are plotting to kill Jesus, the chief priests and stuff, and he asks them, so what do you give me if I give you Jesus? Because he wants that money. He's angry. He's a betrayer. And Jesus even says before this, he's like, it would have been better for the person who betrays me to never have been born. So he tells them, this is what it's going to take for me to give up Jesus. I'll go and I'll give him a kiss and I'll show you who he is and you're going to pay me. And so he makes that deal. Then he goes back to Jesus and the disciples. They're having Passover, right? They have their dinner and stuff. Jesus says someone's going to betray him. And they're like, no, are you kidding me? All the disciples are like, oh my gosh, So then Judas tells him, he's like, it's not me, Rabbi, right? And Jesus is like, you said it yourself. Like, yeah, dude, we both know. But I'm wondering, was that like just between him and Judas? Like the disciples were, when you're in a room and people are eating and talking and they can't hear your conversation? I don't know if they heard the conversation or not. Because I imagine if they heard the conversation, they'd be like, oh, you're going down. You know what I mean? I don't even know. So anyway, so he's like, it's not me, Rabbi, is it? And Jesus is like, yeah, we both know that it's you. Now here's the part. So all of this is happening. Jesus knows he's going to die a horrific manner. And I can't imagine the weight of that's later on. But then immediately after Judas confronts him like, hey, it's not me. And they're like, yeah, I know it is you. Jesus has communion. Right after that are 26 and 27, where he breaks the bread and he blesses the bread and he gives thanks for the bread and the wine. And he says, this is my body broken for you. Do it in remembrance to me. This is my blood poured out for you. Do it in remembrance to me. Right after he has that conversation of betrayal with Judas, he has communion. And he gives thanks to God for communion and for the provision he's giving, for the sacrifice, for the death he's going to experience, being slapped and spit on and beaten and mocked and betrayed. I mean, he was so distressed. He asked God the Father 3 times to remove that cup from him, but not his will, but God's be done. You can be distressed, you can be grieved, and you can have all of these things going on in your life and still walk in obedience to God, because Jesus understands what that feels like. I can't even imagine. So anyway, that's later on in the chapter. There's too much. But here's the thing I wanted to say. Here's the thing. The enemy has minions. He has minions. He has people on assignment to take notes about you, to come up with ways and schemes to destroy you, paralyze you, drown you, put an anchor around you, make you ineffective, all of that. The most powerful thing that a child of God has is the communion and remembrance of what Christ has done for you. Nothing breaks that. Nothing gets close to it. Nothing is stronger than it. Nothing. So while the enemy is trying to take you out, the remembrance of God, of Jesus, of dying on the cross, the communion part of that, and being covered by the sacrifice that he made, nothing penetrates it. Nothing. And you can remind the enemy that this body is just a shell that animates my spirit. And my spirit is eternal. My name is sealed. And even when I struggle, and even when I fall in sin, and even when I'm going through the ups and downs, and even if God decides my days are finished and he takes me home to be with the Lord, and this body dies, I never will be touched. Never. My spirit and my salvation do not get to be touched by you. They don't. Like, you have zero power over me. None. Even when I'm failing. Even when I'm sinning. Even when I falter. Because Christ died, conquered sin and death, and paid the penalty. And because I have him in my heart, I'm done. I'm sealed. Like, period. So when Judas betrays him, and then Jesus has communion and gives thanks to God for the stuff he's going to have to endure on our behalf, I was just like, there is so much power in that. Just period. In giving thanks to God, even when we're suffering, even when we're in pain, just giving thanks to God. Thank you, God, for giving me salvation. Thank you for dying and giving me salvation, even if that's the only thing that you remember to say. I mean, there's just all power in Christ's death, burial, and resurrection. Period. All right, I gotta go. I really recommend reading chapter 26. It's like 75 verses long, and it's so loaded. Anyway, so give thanks to the Lord for your salvation. There's power in that. And let me tell you, if you're like, what are you even talking about? Listen, God's not interested in your religion. He's not interested in the legalities of trying to work your way to being a good person. He doesn't care about that. God's interested in a relationship with you. He made you. He knew you from the foundations of the earth. He knew the plans that he had for you, the steps that he had, all the days of your life, the hairs on your head, and the tears that you cry. He wants a relationship with you because he adores you. He loves you. Right? And here's what that looks like. God, I'm a sinner. I don't know all the things I'm supposed to know. But here's the thing, Lord. I pray that you would forgive my sins. I thank you for it. And I pray you'd come into my heart and be with me, that you be with me. You could say it however you want, but guess what? He will. He'll never leave you. He'll never forsake you, and nothing can strip you from his hand. Nothing. That's what peace that passes understanding looks like. All right, I gotta go. It's Friday. I got so much to do. Pray for me as I pray for you. I hope you have a really good day. And I love you like a crazy person. And don't forget to be good to one another. And you are one of the one another's. Don't forget to be good to yourself. I love you. And I mean it, Peanut. Mwah.